A few weeks ago, I took a drive up to New York City with my parents, and it has been 5 months since quarantine started and 5 months since I've been back to the city. But it almost feels kind of surreal to remember what my life was before all of this started. We didn't really have a lot of time in the city, so most of it was spent taking stuff down, packing everything up, and moving it back to the suburbs. On the car ride back, I got a little bit sentimental because New York City was my dream for the longest time, and seeing this life slip out of my hands for however long and however indefinitely, it made me a little bit sad. And you know that phrase about being the main character of your own life or your own story or movie or whatnot? I kind of felt that. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was closing a chapter that I wasn't really ready to close yet. And this was a chapter that barely even started. And I wish I had documented it a little bit better. But all the things in the past, I can't really change now. And so I made this to celebrate my first year, or what would have been a whole year in New York City, and a first year out of college. In late July, I took a bus up to New York City to find an apartment. And I think I looked at 7 or 8 apartments, but none of them were quite right for me and my roommate. So I went back home and I agreed to a 1-month sublet all the way in Upper East Side. I brought with me 1 suitcase and 1 backpack and basically moved in with 2 strangers that I never really talked to in college. I took a terrible selfie that night just to commemorate this new chapter in my life. And 2 days later, I took one of many 30-minute commutes to my new workplace. I started my first job out of college, and with that came a spectacular 14th story view, a lot of free food, adult drinks and happy hours, and some new friends. Honestly, not much more happened that month, but I did take the subway all the way to Flushing at some point to get my 3rd lobe piercings. In September, I finally moved to Hell's Kitchen right next to Times Square with one of my college friends. I slept on an air mattress for 2 weeks before my bed finally came in, and I started decorating. I went to the Met with some work friends, and I tried pole dancing for the first time with some college friends. On September 6th, my parents came to visit, and I had to take my mom to the ER. I think that was one of the lowest points in my adult life, and I became depressed in a way that I don't think I've ever been before in the past. September was also the month that I experienced my first New York scam, and I tried to buy a queen-sized bed frame from someone off of Facebook Marketplace, and needless to say, it was not a queen-sized bed frame. I had brunch with old friends. I got my first free haircut off of Salon Apprentice. Finally started decorating the apartment with my roommate, and it was looking a little bit more homey. At some point, my roommate persuaded me to do something crazy, and we signed up for a voguing class. I was pretty bad at it. She also won tickets to the Harry Potter Broadway show, so that was cool. And I went to the dentist for the first time in 3 years. I took a train down to Jersey in November and met up with some friends for a wine and movie night. Sometimes after work, I'd go to happy hours.
Wait, you look cute. Can I redo it? He's winning.
There was one day the water just started running brown, and we kind of freaked out because it was gross. Eventually it fixed itself, but I started boiling all of my water soon after, and I don't think I can ever drink tap water again. I went to my company's holiday party, which was kind of weird because I saw all of my older coworkers getting professional and turned at the same time. One of those mornings before work, I waited for 2 hours outside of an art exhibit, smack in the cold with my roommate, just so we could go into the Yayoi Kusama exhibit for 1 minute, and it was totally worth it. The holiday season was fun in the city, kind of crowded, a lot of time with friends, and this is also when I was impulsive and decided to cut bangs. I went to bars a lot even though I hated them, but I loved spending time with my friends. I remember getting complimented on my sweater from this lady at the bar while we were waiting in line for the bathroom, and that kind of made my night. I went to my friend's company holiday party, and I felt so out of place because everyone was just wearing their work clothes, but it was a fun night regardless. I went to a sake bar for the first time, and I went thrifting almost every other week. I spent Christmas back in my hometown, and I binge-watched The Office literally all of December. On the night before New Year's Eve, I paid an exorbitant amount of money because my friends wanted to get a table. So we pretended it was like one of their birthdays, and I cried because my friend got kicked out for sleeping at the table. I spent New Year's Day at my roommate's office in Times Square, and we watched the ball drop right next to us, which was so cool. I held my first adult party with some friends, and we accidentally ran into 3 different sets of friends on the subway. I had a brief moment of contemplation about my life and my careers. I celebrated birthdays and friendships and had food. I still can't believe this, but I got a cat with my roommate. I bonded with street art and cute dogs on the subway. I weathered with the New York cold, and I was in a long-distance relationship. We called almost every night, and we spent all our visits like homebodies. I persuaded him to get his ears pierced in New York City, and I flew out of JFK for the first time and took the wrong train over because I was too shy to ask someone if this was the right train. I tried to film my first YouTube video, but I gave up because I felt so awkward and was so scared of judgment and embarrassing myself, even though I really wanted to do this for so long. I broke my apartment, and I went to Warby Parker a lot. And somewhere in March, my parents drove over to New York City to pick me up because of the quarantine. So I left the city with 1 suitcase, 1 backpack, and my cat. I don't think I realized that day that I'd be leaving for so long, because New York had already somehow become kind of like family to me. And so in a way, I feel like I never fully appreciated everything that had happened my first year and everything that New York gave me and all the ways that New York had shaped me. So I guess this is a long overdue goodbye to New York. But I really can't describe the amount of growth, joy, sadness, and everything that I experienced in my first year. So I guess all I wanted to say was thank you, New York City, for the memories, the friendship, and the experience. And I can't wait to see you again.